forgive me, I have to hold my phone because I cannot get it to stand up to where I need it to be. Today, I'm going to tell you the story of, we're going to call him Cameron. So, I used to work at J. Crew, and I saw Cameron, a couple of times a week, but I never really thought anything about it. And I was on POF one night, and he messaged me. So we started talking, and it was so cute. He goes, so, do you want to go to Waffle House with me tomorrow? And I'm like, sure. So we went, and we talked. He's kind of shy, like he's really reserved, but we ended up talking the whole time, so it wasn't awkward or anything. And, a couple days later, he texted me saying that he didn't know where his emotions, like where his feelings were, and that he didn't think it was going to work out. And I said, at least come over so I can make you dinner. Like, that's all I wanted. So he came over. I made chicken fettuccine alfredo and chocolate chip cookies. And then we watched the Black Panther. And he was sitting on one couch and I was sitting on the recliner. And I'm like, oh my gosh, do I ask? Do I wait until he asks? So finally I'm like, do you want to cuddle? So we did. And when he went to leave, we ended up watching an episode of Gotham and an episode of BoJack Horseman too before he left. So when he went to leave, he gave me a hug. His hugs are amazing. They're like these bear hugs, and I loved it. And I went to kiss him on the cheek, and he caught me and kissed me on the mouth. I'm like, oh, okay. And anyway, he left, and I was back on the couch. I was watching Pretty Little Liars, and I kind of dozed off, and I woke up and started texting, I wish you were still here. And as I sent that, he sent me a text saying, I feel like I never should have left. So I was like, LOL, come back. And 20 minutes later, guess who was at my door? So that was nice. So anyway, we started talking more, and he was kind of distant, but I realized, like, that's just how he is. Like, he doesn't really text a whole lot. And we had decided to be cuddle buddies. Like, we didn't want to be friends with benefits because we didn't want to mess up our friendship or whatever. And he ended up, I ended up drunk texting him one night. I basically said that I really, really, really liked him and that I didn't want to share and I wanted him to be mine and a whole bunch of other stuff. And he responded, Kate, take a step back. This is why I didn't want to do it in the first place, because I know you want more and I can't give you more. And I'm like, shit. So he stopped talking to me for a while, and I kept trying to change his mind, and it wasn't working. So finally, a few weeks later, I was at work, and he came in for half a shift, and I ended up going on break the same time he did, and I got a hug. And I said, I wouldn't mind being friends with benefits. Like, I can handle it. That's what I want. And he said, let me think about it. So he went home, and a couple hours later, I got a text, a very explicit text, basically saying, yes, we can be friends with benefits. So after work that night, I went and hung out with him, and it was nice. It wasn't awkward. It wasn't, it wasn't anything. And I'm like, okay, I can definitely get used to this. So, oh no, I drunk texted him after that. I got my story mixed up. We hung out and hooked up, and then I drunk texted him. And that's when he said he didn't want to do this anymore. So anyway, I wrote him off, or so I thought. And in January, I started dating Officer Lewis, what we're going to call him. And at one point, I told a few people about something anatomically related to him. I don't know how else to say it without coming right out and saying it. But anyway, I got back to him, and he asked me if I was talking shit. And I said a few things that were not favorable, and it was immature, and I apologized. And I never said anything else after that. Anyway, in a couple weeks before Officer Lewis and I started dating, Cameron started dating Cynthia. And I, being the jealous type, wanted to cry every time I saw them together. It was awful. But they broke up late March. So Officer Lewis and I started dating the end of January, and then Cameron texted me the end of March asking if we could be friends. And I said, honestly, I think it's a bad idea because things were already complicated. I was with someone else, and I said I'm not going to do anything I wouldn't want him to do, and that includes hanging out with someone I once hooked up with. And he's like, but it was only once. I'm like, but still, I can't, I wouldn't want him to do that, so I'm not going to do that. So anyway, we ended up not talking, for a couple months. And then literally the day Officer Lewis and I broke up, I went to Cameron's house and we hung out and hooked up. And he gave me a t-shirt, which that's like my favorite thing if a guy gives me a t-shirt to sleep in of his. And I wore it every night for about a week, but he stopped responding. So eventually I just drove over there, and he got mad at me for coming over because he was expecting company. His company saw my car and kept driving because they thought he was lying about being alone. I thought for sure I was never going to see him again after that because it was very tense. But anyway, 2 or 3 weeks go by, and I asked if he was still mad at me. And he said, no, I should have never been mad at you in the first place because you did text me to tell me you were coming over, which I did a couple times. And we ended up, I don't think we hung out after that. I think we just talked. But anyway, a few weeks after that, Officer Lewis comes back into my life and talked about getting back together. So I wrote Cameron this letter basically saying that he's an amazing guy and any girl would be lucky to have him, and to just, keep his head up. And I put the t-shirt in the bag with the letter and left it on his front porch. About a week later, he texted me, and he's like, why are you getting back together with him? And I told him, I'm like, well, he said he's going to try to be better this time, blah, 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 it doesn't matter. And, I said, but if it were up to me, we would have one more rendezvous, like one more night. So he invited me over. So first he went into very explicit details. Then he invited me over that Friday. And I went. We did what we did. And then we were sitting on the couch. I was playing with my keys, stalling, because I didn't want to leave. And I said, honestly, part of me loves you and will always want you. And the look on his face, I can't even tell you, I can't describe it. But I'm like, okay, I guess I'll take it back. And he said he already knew. And I said, well, how did you know? And he said, I just had a feeling. So he knew I loved him, and I cried. Like, for the last 20 minutes I was there, I just cried. And he gave me a really, really, really long hug and kissed me and walked me out to my car. And through tears, I said, take care of yourself. I got in my Jeep and I pulled out. And I bawled. I'm telling you, I have not cried that hard in a really, really long time. And I want to say like 3 weeks later, 2 or 3 weeks later, I ended up going over to his house because I thought I had given up on Officer Lewis. I'll get to that in another video. But anyway, I went, we hung out, we hooked up, blah, blah, blah. And then he told me where he kept his spare key. And he said to come whenever I please and to just, crawl into his bed. I'm like, I can do that. So I did that 2 nights in a row. And after the second night, I haven't heard from him. And that was back, I think November 8th, I think was the last time I talked to him. And the last time I saw him, we didn't hook up. Because both times I got there, he was already asleep. So it wasn't a big deal. But I haven't heard from him since, and I was thinking about texting him to hang out one more time, but then I'm like, I can't go through that again. Walking away from him was one of the hardest things I've ever had to do, but I know it was the right thing to do because he's also moving. And it gave me a chance to get unattached. So, yeah. But, yeah, that's the story of Cameron. He's a great guy. He's just a great guy. And I'll miss him, and part of me will always wonder, how he's doing, and I just hope he'll be happy. And I hope he'll find someone who has kids, because I know that's important to him, So yeah, that's the story of Cameron. I might have more details that I missed, and if I do, I will just upload them later. So yeah, bye.